Hi. This FD borrows parts from a Lamborghini, Audi R8, and Corvette for high-powered development. If you think the exterior of Todd Budd's 1993 Mazda RX-7, complete with its 1970s-era RX-3 front-end transplant and bulbous front and rear fenders, seems like a wild approach, then the 1,100-plus horsepower four-rotor power plant and Lamborghini Gallardo transaxle beneath the surface should truly be a shock to your system. The purists probably aren't too happy about this one-off creation, but keep in mind the whole reimagining, all of which took place at force-fed fabrication, F3 Motorsports, was applied to a basket case of an FD. What began as a bare shell with a storied history of multiple accidents and questionable repair was torn into for closer inspection and seemed to be a lost cause. Owner Todd Budd adds, after digging into the shell and realizing just how much work would be involved to return the car to a factory appearance and be roadworthy, the conclusion was to build something completely insane. What sold as new again? That insanity included grafting an RX-3's headlights and grille onto the more modern FD, but rather than opting for the Pent Emboss kit, F3 combined the RX-3 nose with the factory fender rears using custom sheet metal to bridge the gap and with a huge arc outward to widen the front end. A hand-formed steel hood was also built to accommodate the backdated front fascia. You'll find more of the same in the rear with custom hand-formed steel quarter panels that push outward considerably, their lower front portions housing exhaust exits on each side. The dramatic widening didn't bring with it a towering rear wing, instead, a subtle evercarbon fiber ducktail was added, as were the brand's fender-mounted mirrors. Drastically changing the look of the svelte FD is a bold move and one that not everyone will agree with, but this project was all about standing out for Todd. Pull back the handcrafted hood and every bit of real estate is accounted for with custom fabrication used throughout the engine room. At first glance, a pair of Garrett G43 1200C turbos and a billet JMF intake plenum with custom runners are the show stealers, but there's quite a bit going on underneath. A billet-plated, full peripheral ported, four-rotor engine now powers the FD and has been fully outfitted to handle far more boost than the 28 pounds per square inch it sees currently. The everything engine build. Half-inch studs and E&J apex seals add security, and a Billet Pro 7000 series intermediate plate is at play, as are Mazda S5 turbo rotors that have been scalloped and lightened. A Barnes 5-stage dry sump pump and custom billet pan are joined by a 5-gallon tank. The cry for massive amounts of fuel is answered by an Aeromotive 10 GPM in-tank pump that feeds 2 stages of ID 2600 injectors. The all-in rotary setup generates 1,182 horsepower and 775 pounds-to-foot of torque under the watchful eye of Halt XR5, but again, that's somewhat conservative given the current boost level. Todd adds, the engine would produce way more power than could ever be put to the ground, even with the AWD system. That's right, this FD sends power to all four wheels using a Lamborghini Gallardo sports car's Graziano 6-speed manual transaxle and front diff, as well as custom uprated axles at all four corners. You can check out a video clip of this incredible RX-7 revving right here. Along with borrowing parts from Lamborghini's parts shelves, you'll also find an Audi R8 gated shifter system and Chevy Corvette-style torque tube accompanied by a carbon fiber driveshaft and billet yokes. Tour the car's underbelly and you'll find there's as much Corvette as there is RX-7 at this point, with C7 bushings in place and upper and lower control arms both front and rear, spindles, wheel bearings, and more. The front and rear subframes are a custom tubular affair that allow for the cross-platform transaxle and suspension mounting. There's really no need for a sound system with the menacing, chopping sounds provided by the monster four-rotor setup, so a head unit, along with any sort of HVAC controls, are non-existent, their bezels and switches smoothed over with a single piece of carbon fiber. The factory gauge cluster was retired and an EAM CD7 now resides behind the flat-bottom MoMA steering wheel. Brigia's two seats are surrounded by carbon fiber door cards that match the carbon gauge cluster hood, and Alcantara was laid over much of the tonneau cover. Behind the pilot and passenger is a custom roll bar and a portion of the fire suppression system at the ready. 2 tickets to Vegas. While the car was still under construction back in 2019, it was invited to Toyo Tire's Treadpass at SEMA, and just a few months after it returned to F3, the engine was fired and let loose on the dyno, but there was much more work left to be done. Later that year, during the on-again/off-again events calendar as a result of COVID, SEMA's 360 virtual event took place and the RX-7 was once again on hand in much more completed form, earning top 12 honors in the Battle of the Builders. 3 years later, after a complete engine rebuild, considerable dyno time, and various tweaks and changes, the four-rotor AWD RX-7 is fully operational but remains an ever-evolving project that Todd and F3 are learning from. The most valuable lesson learned is a full peripheral ported turbo 4 rotor just is not meant for the street, he says. It wants to go and go hard. The future for this car is to keep refining it so it can be pushed, and every time it's driven is an opportunity to learn more about it and make it better. 1993 Mazda RX-7. Engine billet Pro 7000 series intermediate plate, stationary gears, solid inserts, 26B mids, Mazda factory housings with CNC machine billet peripheral ports, full function FD billet mounts, shaft billet X40 26B by Precision Engineering, scalloped and lightened Mazda S5 turbo rotors, half-inch studs, E&J apex seals, Mazda Motorsports bearings, side seals, 9:1 compression, Barnes 5-stage dry sump pump, custom billet aluminum dry sump pan, 5-gallon tank, billet aluminum crank hub and trigger wheel with custom HTD alternator and oil pump pulleys, belt tension system, Garrett G43 1200C Turbo X2, PTP Turbo Blanket Quartz X2, Wastegate Blanket X2, JMF intake plenum with custom runners and block flange, 92mm drive-by-wire throttle body, TL 50mm blow-off valve X2, 60mm wastegate X2, custom 304 stainless equal-length 4:1:2 merge collector turbo manifold, 4-inch 321 stainless downpipe, dual 4-inch 304 stainless exhaust tubing X2, oval resonator X2, side exit exhaust, Aeromotive 10 GPM in-tank fuel pump, Fuel Lab 10 and 40 micron fuel filters, regulator, JMF 10 and fuel rail, ID 2602 stages, 10 and aluminum feed and return lines, flex fuel sensor, custom 22-gallon fuel tank, Bell 2000 horsepower air/water intercooler core, custom end tanks, Duraley heat exchanger, CWA 400 electric water pump, custom hardlines, Griffin 3-row radiator, Spalt 2200 CFM fans, 18-row oil cooler, Haltech R5 VCU, dual fuel Tech FD Spark CDI boxes, CDI coils, custom chassis harness. Power 1182 horsepower, 775 pounds-foot of torque at 28 pounds per square inch. Drivetrain Lamborghini Gallardo rear-mounted Graziano 6-speed manual transaxle, front differential, Audi R8 gated shifter system, direct clutch dual-centered iron plates, billet flywheel, LSD front and rear, custom stage 4 front and rear axles, front high-angle CVs, custom cross-shaft and bearing support, aluminum Corvette-style torque tube with carbon fiber driveshaft, billet yokes, custom front driveshaft with cardan-type joints, billet support bearings, input shaft. Suspension tractive RTD AC7 dampers with external reservoirs, 550 pounds springs W/125 pounds helpers, rear 650 pounds springs W/125 pounds helpers, 1.25-inch splined hollow front say-bar, 625-inch solid rear, billet aluminum arms, GMC7 Corvette bushings, upper/lower control arms front and rear, spindles front and rear, Z06 wheel bearings, Granatelli racing alignment kit, custom roll bar, DSC Sport electronic control unit for wheel speed, shock position, onboard inertial system data, custom tubular rear subframe for transaxle and suspension mounting, tubular front frame, Sweet Manufacturing high torque non-power steering rack. Braking wheel wood SX6R front calipers, Aero 4 rear calipers, 15 inches. Front/14.25 rear rotors, BP20 pads, brake booster delete with dual master cylinders, manual balance bar. Wheels and tires Voss and Work VWS 119 by 12.5-10 rear, 19 by 9.5-25 front, Toyo Proxys R888 R345 30 front, 265 30 front. Exterior PPG Deltron base to match OEM RX-7 color, PPG DCU 2021 clear, hand-formed steel hood, rear fenders, RX-3 nose grafted to RX-7 fenders and BMW M3 fender sections, Ever carbon fiber mirrors, ducktail, side vents, outer door trim, feed carbon fiber side skirts, LED tail lights, Dapper lighting 575 LED headlights. Interior Bride GS2 seats, Schroth harnesses, ESS Motorsports fire system, Momo steering wheel, Energy SFI quick release, Ever carbon fiber dash hood, heater panel, custom carbon fiber dash console, Alcantara tunnel cover trim, Sabon carbon fiber door panels, carbon Miata trim, EAM CD7 digital dash,